Welcome to Portland Tea Party. I'm Ciara Pressler. Today, we're getting some tea on transportation. We all use transportation. What do we need to know? And we're talking about what it's like to be involved in these crazy city elections. With Sarah Iannarone, we're at the Street Trust, and we'll see you in a couple. Welcome to Portland Tea Party, your favorite show about Portland, the tea, and where the party's at. A little bit of news for you before we get started. The Oregon legislative session wrapped up last night, and they got a lot done. I mean, a reasonable amount done, maybe compared to last time. And if you want to know more about legislative session and why that matters and how it works, check out a few episodes ago when we got to talk to Shumway from Oregon Capital Chronicle. She's awesome, and she is reporting on everything that happened. We'll drop the link in the show notes. A few highlights I wanted to let you know about. One is that the legislature enacted campaign finance limits. It won't go into effect till 2027, so it doesn't really affect this year, but it's limits for each entity of how much they could give to a campaign, like an individual versus a union or things. And you might think, oh, that's great, campaign finance limits. I'm in favor of that. But it also doesn't say a total. And I notice a lot of my friends who are in politics, they follow who has the most money. That's the person who's going to win. And I wish it weren't that way. I wish it was the best person for the job is going to win, and that's who we're watching. But it's America. We're a capitalist society. There's a lot of money flowing around. So I wish there was a cap altogether and everyone just got to spend the same amount and is how good you spend it. But at least it's a step in the right direction. All right. Measure 110, so much controversy. Measure 110 is what we voted on a few years ago to decriminalize drug possession. That had some unintended consequences. We didn't have the infrastructure really for recovery from drug use. And so they have recriminalized possession of small amounts of hard drugs, but they're also putting $211 million into recovery. Now, we need to talk to somebody who works in this area because it's a really big deal. But I also want to say that we don't know if $211 million is enough money. And also if they need to open a rehab or a detox center, how long is that going to take? So we don't want people to be left in the gap from that, but sincerely wish everybody who is struggling with that a swift recovery. And I hope that we have the resources for that in Oregon very soon. Last one I want to tell you about from the legislative session is that they granted $376 million for infrastructure and incentives to build houses and gave cities the option to more easily add new land to build housing. Complicated. Adding land to cities. I was just learning about that down in the Rogue Valley, Medford, how big a deal it is to have a city boundary and how controversial that can be because it can encroach on farmland. It's different for different cities throughout the state. But is $376 million enough for housing? Probably not, but we got to take steps in the right direction. Again, we're not solving these problems overnight. They're super complex, and at least we can get started. All right, I'm no political expert, but we're going to talk to somebody who knows a lot more than I do. Again, we'll drop the link to Julia Shumway's summary of the Oregon legislative session in our show notes. And while you're waiting for our guest, be sure to go to I almost said my company name, PortlandTeaParty.com, and pitch your show idea, especially venues. We shoot from a different local business, local nonprofit every single week. So if you know of a place we should showcase, please go to PortlandTeaParty.com and pitch your idea. And when we're back, Sarah Iannarone. Welcome back. We are here with Sarah Iannarone, the Executive Director of the Street Trust. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks for having me on the show. Excited.
I was really excited to have you because you're one of the smartest people I know.
Well, thank you.
And I always appreciate everything that you do. So let's just start with what you do here. What is the Street Trust?
So the Street Trust is about 30 years old. Originally founded as the Bicycle Transportation Alliance, and they were focused a lot on improving cycling conditions for people in Portland, and they also worked on some statewide efforts. But over the years, what they learned is that you can't just design a system that works for one type of traveler. You need to think about all the various users of our streets, and so that's where they came up with a new mission and a new name called the Street Trust. And now we focus on making sure that we have a complete, equitable, accessible, low-carbon transportation system, regardless of how you move around. And we do a lot of work at the regional level and also at the state with an upcoming transportation package in the 2025 legislative session. So this one barely wrapped, and we've already been planning for the next session because this was a short session. The next one will have a transportation package focus, so hopefully we can get a lot of work done then.
That's exciting.
It is very exciting.
But it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It is a marathon, not a sprint, especially in transportation, which, you know, they're big, sprawling projects, unlike housing where you've got a wide range of people from small developers to large. There aren't many small developers building roadways, right? So these are large conversations with a lot of government entities that we have to involve, and it's complicated.
Right, because one entity isn't in charge of all transportation. It's like the city, metro, the state, and they overlap a lot. I'm just learning.
Yeah, like even Powell Boulevard is a perfect example for people who listen. A lot of folks don't know that's actually controlled by the Oregon Department of Transportation. And the city of Portland controls like the feeder streets into it, right? So when we have a fatal crash near Cleveland High School at 26th and Powell, you've got PPS on one corner, you've got Burgerville on another corner, you've got the freight industry trying to access the Brooklyn rail yards, you've got Oregon, City of Portland, streets cleaners, like you're hearing in the audio.
We can hear one right now, right on cue.
We're here at Lloyd Center. But, you know, so it's really complicated, all the jurisdictions coming together to figure it out.
Wow. So explain it like I'm 5. Why should a person who never thinks about like transportation policy or how things happen when they're just like driving or biking down the street, like why should we care about the work of the Street Trust?
Well, at the end of the day, you think about industries, right? You were just talking about campaign finance reform and who gets to influence how decisions are made. If you're with a big industry group, you have a lot of money and you can either run campaigns or give campaign contributions to people running for office to try to shape outcomes. Well, every individual transit rider or cyclist or even an automobile operator, maybe who rides their cargo bike 3 days a week and drives 4 days a week, right? They have interests too, and who represents those? So the Street Trust is the representative for all street users, especially our most vulnerable people who don't otherwise have a voice in politics. So we try to elevate those. A good example is the Regional Transportation Plan update that just wrapped in November of 2023. Over $60 billion in investments were going to be steered by that process. Well, a lot of jurisdictions weigh in, right, different interest groups, but who's going to advocate for that vulnerable system user in Tigard or in Hillsborough or Forest Grove who maybe doesn't live near transit but really needs to make sure there are safe sidewalks for walking or bike lanes for bicycling so they can get to a transit center, right? These are the types of things that we're trying to elevate to lawmakers alongside some of the more powerful interest groups.
So safety is a big thing that you all advocate for, and you educate, you have like public education programs. Talk a little bit about how all of us, you know, non-policymakers can help make the streets safer.
Well, I think the most important thing is to really understand how each of us plays a role in that system functioning. So we're focused on this thing we call a safe systems approach, where everybody is using the system together. Whether you're a person who considers yourself a motorist primarily, you still walk, right? You're still a pedestrian. Oftentimes you may be parking your car and walking to a store, or just even your house, right? To where you have your car parked on the street, maybe. You're a pedestrian in that moment. So understanding that we're all in this together is the first thing. Then really looking out for people who are vulnerable in the street. So understanding that anyone outside of a metal box, whether that's a bus or a car, right, or a truck, is really vulnerable if they're involved in a collision. Their likelihood of surviving decreases the faster the automobile is going at the time of collision. So speed is so incredibly important. It may not seem like it makes a big difference if you're driving 40 down one of our wider roads, or 30 or 20, but with each 10 miles in speed reduction, people's chances of surviving a crash go up significantly. So it's really important to bear in mind. And then at the end of the day, really letting your lawmakers know when they're making those decisions that even if you do drive an automobile, you also support safety for people who may not be in cars. Because a lot of times we're pitted against each other, and we want to say we're all in these streets together. I care about people who ride
these streets, all right.
Right? Like I care about people who are riding transit. I don't want to hit a cyclist even if I'm driving home from work. That would tragically affect my life and their life, right? These are not things that we're separated from. The streets are where we all come together. 2020 taught us that, right? So really understanding the role that we all play and not being too in your own frame of reference, but really expanding to how other people are seeing it.
Well, I am going to obey the speed limit going forward. If you could change anything, you're like, I would change all the things. When it comes to transportation in Portland, what do you think would help make the city better in the near future?
I love to see alignment between the priorities and the budget.
Okay,
so if
say
safety
more.
is your top priority, or equity is your top priority, or climate change is your top priority, then the money should be spent on those things, right? And oftentimes what we see is it's almost an inverse relationship. We put our aspirations at one end, and then where the budget goes is into maintaining the status quo. So if we're going to be transforming systems, we really need to reinvest. And that's hard, because change is hard. Systems change is hard. Personal behavior change is hard. So really thinking about it through that lens of how we're going to invest to change what we need to change is what I would do on day one if I had a magic wand and were queen of the world.
I would like to crown you, but, you know, well, okay, here's the question I really want to ask is, you know, the famous like Portlandia sketch with the biker who like yells at everyone and blows the whistle and he's like, move, and he's like biking everywhere. Like, that's how I feel when I'm driving down like North Williams and I'm like so scared of like getting in the way of any cyclists and everything. And so there can be sometimes like that stereotype if you're a motorist of bikes being like aggressive or something like that. And yet I like so admire people who bike around town. So how do we build bridges in that sense?
Well, we changed our name from the Bicycle Transportation Alliance to the Street Trust for a reason. So let me just baseline that.
Okay.
Right? Like, we really understood that that was perhaps a barrier to getting what we need to keep everyone safe, including people on bicycles. And that stereotype is not altogether false, right? So we always know stereotypes are grounded at least in maybe even a seed of truth, even if it's only a grain. But those guys do that to me too. And ever since I got an e-bike, right? It's been amazing because I can put on pumps and a skirt and on my e-bike and smoke past those folks too. And it like gives me this bit of, it's like a Pyrrhic victory, honestly, but it does give me a sense of superiority for only a moment, even though I'm like electrically empowered, because it is an uncomfortable feeling for certain people to feel like they are entitled or, you know, demanding, right? And again, it's for all of us. When I talk about motor vehicle operators recognizing that other people are using the streets, people on bicycles need to have that same consideration, especially, again, when we're talking about people more vulnerable than us. Well, you know who's more vulnerable than someone on a bicycle probably is someone walking, especially someone walking to access transit, maybe on a busy street. We all need to maintain that awareness of the people who are more vulnerable than we are in the streets. But I do understand it a little bit, because when you are on a bicycle, you are constantly facing threats. And you're moving at a pretty high speed through an urban environment as well.
And you don't have that shell around you.
And I do think that the adrenaline and the psychology of that can kick in. So if a car comes near you and you know that the person driving that car is probably not going to die if you two collide, but you might, it really does, you know, it changes how you're operating and moving through the world. It's a really defensive act. So I do try to give them a bit of grace as well, but I would like us to all have a broader, more compassionate understanding of what all the users are going through. Let me offer you one example because I love this one.
Okay.
A lot of times the freight, right? They try to pit freight industry or motor vehicle industry against, like, say, the cyclists, like as if they're
So
at odds.
freight would be like trucks delivering
Commercial
my boxes.
trucks or like
trains.
No,
That's
more
what I
like
think of.
trucks.
Okay,
like
okay.
yeah, but like even people, when you think about trains, we put the cargo containers are on the train and then they go onto a truck
Okay,
and then they
fair.
go. So all of these things are part of the system. I was at the Goodwill the other day and I rode up on my e-bike and parked it, and the person driving the big 18-wheeler that was delivering to the Goodwill got out of his cab and came over and talked to me. He said, I ride an e-bike. He
nice.
commutes by e-bike
Yeah.
to the place where he works to pick up the truck and drive it around. And I think, really understanding that all of us have this complexity to who we are and aren't just like defined by one mode choice that we may either take intentionally or just because out of habit or whatever, it doesn't define us. Right? What defines us is our connection to each other and our connection to the place.
I
And
don't
love
need the
that.
identity of my
Yeah.
car, or like I only take the streetcar. Like, let's all take whatever we want.
And need when we want it, and all of us should have the wonderful liberty of being able to do so in a way we can afford and that makes us feel safe.
I love that. Last question.
Okay.
Do bikes have to obey the same rules as cars on the streets?
They do.
Like
We
they have
have-
to stop at a stoplight?
Well, yes. We all have rules of the road that apply to us. So
Right.
when there's something new called the Idaho stop, right, which means that
That sounds like a stop for a very long time to me at first glance.
it's actually the opposite.
Okay.
So when there's a stop sign at an intersection, bicycles have a liberty of kind of rolling
Oh, they
through
can.
that.
Okay.
And that was a law that was changed because
Oh.
bicycles starting and stopping our momentum is much different than a motor vehicle
Yes.
with powerful braking systems. So that Idaho stop is where they are rolling
I
through.
thought that was a California stop. But let's go east. That's
I mean,
cool.
we could go.
Yeah.
So the Idaho stop is
All
what
right.
we're talking about
Well,
there.
I can't wait to bike more this summer. I just got my bike share membership, so I'm feeling it right now. So thanks for inspiring me.
Well, and I encourage you to go on one of our WeBike activities. So they're women,
Okay.
trans, femme, inclusive.
Okay.
Maddie leads them here. They're very popular. She does rides that are exclusive to those groups so that it helps people feel comfortable riding. So you're not solo. You can really get comfortable on the streets in a group, and it's a cohort. You make friends, and they even do things like put their bikes on the Max and then go camping and bike to regional
gosh.
campsites and camp overnight and stuff. So that WeBike program would be perfect fit for you. You'd have a blast too.
I'll check it out. So thestreettrust.org,
Yep.
and you all have a lot of community events, so people
So
should check
many
it out. Follow on
programs.
Insta.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The one thing I would encourage folks to look up in the short term is our applications are now open for our Ride to Own program, which is a free e-bike if you're underneath a certain income threshold.
Wow.
And then we spend a year with you, educating you, supporting you, teaching you how to ride in the winter, how to ride in the summer, how to buy your groceries by bicycle, how to take care of your bicycle. And the pilot applications are now open in Park Rose, Milwaukee, and Hillsborough. So if you know
That's
folks in need
amazing.
in those areas, yeah, it's amazing.
Wow. Okay. When we come back, we're going to shift gears and have some tea with Sarah Iannarone after this. It's tea time, and I'm here with someone you want to get to know, and I'm going to try and trip her up to get her to say something she doesn't know. I will not do that. Sarah Iannarone. So first of all, I just realized that this is full circle because I first became aware of you in, probably 2015, hearing an interview with you on OPB, and I was like, who is this incredibly smart person? And it was you, and we became friends after we spoke at the same conference, and I was like, I want to support you. I really like what you're about. So yeah.
Same back at you.
Yeah, we're
it's
friends.
nice to see how your offerings in our community have evolved over this past decade as well.
My offerings in the community.
Well, they're very impactful in ways that people maybe outside of local government might not know because it's a little bit more behind the scenes. But I understand how those behind the scenes work, and I know you're doing incredible work in our city too, so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I got to work with you here at the Street Trust, and I'll just say it was 2021, right after an event we will talk about in a moment, and you had just started as executive director, and I came in to just help you and support you on your strategic planning, working with your board, and I was like, damn, she is smart, and she is a really good, you were so easy to work with because you are smart, you can see complexities, you can think in systems, which a lot of people can't. You can think strategically, you can interact with people at every level. I mean, I couldn't say enough. I think you are really wonderful.
Thanks. And the strategic plan that you did for us too, I've actually offered that up as a model to my colleagues in this active transportation space as well, because you know what you equipped us and empowered us to do was so profound. I think it's really helped the organization get back on its feet and level up. They call it glow up. Everybody's calling it our glow up. So I'm excited about our glow up.
I'm all about the glow up.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the real. You ran for mayor. What year was that?
Twice. I ran once in 2016.
Right, that's when I met you.
Came in third, and then I ran in 2020 and came in second. So I'm a perennial mayoral election loser, if you want to call it.
Yeah, 2 times.
Two times.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, amazing, because it is so hard to put yourself out there. And I was talking to Carmen Rubio last week, who is a mayoral candidate, and the question I always have is like, how do you keep your sanity? Because people troll triple hard on women running for office. And yeah, can we just talk about that for a second?
Sure, I'm next. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up a girl.
Yeah.
Femme. I'm pretty femme, and I remember being like, well, why isn't there a girls wrestling team, right?
Yeah.
Or things like that.
Yeah.
But I had always been brave and proud and moved through and tried to achieve my goals regardless. But I really felt like that glass ceiling became like a heavy metal sledgehammer when I decided I would be so brave as to run for a major office in our city. Just the various levels of implicit bias and overt bias, frankly, that you have to grapple with while you're just trying to do the basic work is such a burden.
Yeah.
Fortunately, because my mayoral campaigns were both relatively iconoclastic and innovative, by the time I ran the second time, what made us more competitive there, because my qualifications hadn't really changed. I had a few more years experience, but what I was bringing to the table was what I had brought to the table the previous time, was I really knew to build systems around me to control for the things that I can't control. So one of my first people that I enlisted was Judith Rizzio, who calls herself a style activist. She's phenomenal.
Oh, I met her at your birthday.
You've met her.
Yeah.
She just really pulled it out straight away and called it out. You're a woman running for office. Let's do something to equip you for this.
Right.
Because I would, think, I have to put on a navy blue suit, and what's my necktie going to look like? She's like, no. You will never look like the person who belongs in that business suit with the tie.
Right.
Because that wasn't built for you. So let's put you into something, right? So one of the first things I did as a mayoral candidate was she sent me to the bra shop in Alberta and got me fitted for a proper fitting bra. From there, she took me to the store and we shopped, and she said, listen, you got to put on something that makes you look like the person who bosses people in business suits around. Who is that? School teacher, grandmother, right? So she really took this whole style journey with me.
Psychology of it, yeah.
To the ways that we could try to build things around me. And that's why you saw me in a lot of turtlenecks and sweaters and things like that. I had to bring a makeup artist with me everywhere I went, because if I looked older or unfit, I'm judged more harshly for that. So those are things that my campaign had to spend money on, that I'm guessing Ted Wheeler didn't. I mean, just outside guess, right? But so things like that, and that's just one aspect of it. Every part of my training in how I would communicate, how I would present myself, how I had to appear. Don't be too angry, don't be too forward. Don't be quite such a smart know-it-all, Sarah, right? Because it's one thing if you are the guy in the suit with the tie, then you get the right to be a know-it-all. But if you're me, right, you have to be a little bit more conciliatory and things like that.
Pause you there, because that was the thing that was making me so frustrated during those campaigns is of course we all know from like when Hillary ran for office, you know, women get criticized for the way they look on a whole other level, and like everything has to be in place. I know if I, you know, the more I'm in the public eye, the more people expect like my hair to be straight and like all these things that take a lot of time and money to do. And whereas like it takes me an hour to get ready to look the way people will even listen to what I'm saying, like it will take a guy 5 minutes. And then don't even get me started on the angry thing. You know, I'm angry because I'm paying attention to what's going on. I think if you're not a bit angry, like you should like free yourself a little bit. But if you talk about something like in too much of a perfunctory way, or you get passionate about something, and then it's like hysteria or anger or something. And I really feel that there's 3 things. I'm just gonna go.
Please.
You got an unfair shake that way because almost all women do. And you even have some white privilege and you still got that, right? Because like heaven forbid, like a black woman be passionate and kind of angry. Although I think we're accepting a little more now, which is very entertaining and lovely. I think also I didn't like how you were framed up as like a small business owner. And, you know, I know some of that's good and like community, like an activist and like super, because I think you're very practical and you understand systems, like I said. And it was like, well, you're a professor at PSU, you're working on your PhD in city planning, you were guiding tours to groups from Europe and like other cities who wanted to study Portland, and you were explaining to them how Portland works and how it could be better, and like really a scholar and an expert in how cities work. And so I was sitting there like, she is so qualified, you know, in those ways. And I'm not saying you're necessarily people, you know, whoever they were for. And then the other thing was it was 2020 and we're friends and staying in contact during COVID. And you were showing up to every protest for Black Lives Matter and for social justice, and you did not publicize it. You were not posting it on social media. So I am calling it out right now that you were there, and your opponent didn't go for a very long time. And then it was only to kind of be there on camera and do sort of, you know, and he got attacked for that. But I appreciate that behind, like where people can't see, you're acting with integrity. Yeah, I want to say all those things, and I'm sure you have some reaction to that.
Well, thank you. I mean, everything is a lesson, right? And at the end of the day, there are things I could have done better to be more competitive, but there are certain things I can't control. So even, you know, things like small business owner, I don't really feel like I got to own that. I feel like that got stripped away from me, or even small business founder, right? We were on diners, drive-ins, and dives for our restaurant at one point. Awesome. Yeah, so, I mean, but it's not like I'm a successful business founder, right? Like, so, whatever, you know, I've learned to, like, accommodate. But I think the larger issue is, you know, we take it for granted because we see women in leadership that it's easier for women than it was before. And right now, I mean, I saw a stat, I think it was either City Club or North Star Civic Foundation, one of those, that said only 25% of the candidates in the City of Portland election right now are non-binary or women, right?
Ladies, if you are on the fence about running, please get in the race. This cannot be. Okay, please continue.
Well, there's that, but then also the higher up you go, right?
Yeah.
If school board's fine, maybe even a city council, fine, right? But you want to keep going to the place where you're like the highest level of power, right?
Yeah.
Tighter and tighter.
Right. But we have a female governor. We have a is it Metro, like all women, or
No.
Multnomah County?
Multnomah County has historically been women.
Historically, yeah. So do you think, I think Oregon is better about it than other places, but maybe I'm being naive.
Well, you know, to our credit, we are, I think, somewhat better, but we also lean more Democrat, and it's a little easier for women in that party than the GOP. But also think about it, in our governor's race was all women. Right?
That's
it was
extraordinary.
Drazen, John, but they also, I loved that because I didn't have to deal with that nonsense, right? Each of them got to show up just as who they were.
Yeah.
The county, again, a lot of social services. So the more you're coded for that social service frame, right? Think about it. Healthcare workers, teachers, right? That's a lot of the county work. City, you know, the city building is that's a man's. I mean, that's how some of those guys still show up today in the city of Portland, inside and outside of elective office.
This was my whole last month, was just feeling very frustrated and even hopeless and despairing because, you know, I work very hard and I look around and I see my male peers and they seem to work half as much as I do. And then, you know, a lot of people do not take me seriously. And it's like, you know, even at the city, I think the men in leadership either don't know who I am or don't acknowledge me when I'm working with all the people they directly manage on strategy more than they are. And you would think that I would be an extremely valuable person for them to talk to because I've been inside their bureaus, like working on everything, creating accountability, and you'd think that I would be like a good reference, but I get very dismissed and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I ran an experiment inadvertently because I had 2 policy fellows this year, and both of them were older males in like kind of following up on degrees in a second career and things like that, and I didn't think about it. But these are probably like my most junior staff, right? No diss on them, they're both highly qualified and wonderful people, but they are policy fellows, right? So they're students studying, working here part-time. When I would send them in to events, I wasn't even thinking about it. Like people call them sir, you know, treat them with respect and listen to them like they're experts. And then I roll through and I'm like at the top of the food chain in my organization and I'm like a bit, you know, I have to fight for that legitimacy as well. So it's very tacit, you know, but I think it undermines us a lot too because it doesn't allow us to lean into our strengths as leaders. Like when we do see women leading into our strengths, I do think there are things that we, you know, I don't want to be too determinist about it, but collaboration and a willingness to be innovative with resources, we tend to do well at that while thinking strategically, because we're used to having to keep folks alive, right? So,
well, and because historically we have had to work harder to get to the same place, like we already have more capacity as default. And I will go to bat saying that. Some people might be like, oh yeah, women aren't always better than men. And maybe not always, but I will say the vast majority of the women I work with work much harder just because we've had to. And so our default is to work extremely hard and do whatever it takes and take care of everybody's emotional state at the same time and look the way we're supposed to look. I mean, it's fucking exhausting.
Yeah, and I'm not even the most, I mean, I actually lean a lot masculine in a lot of my tendencies, which is maybe why I am where I am. So I don't even do a lot of that emotional labor and heavy lifting that I do see some of my colleagues doing too.
I'm trying to do
just because I'm horrible at it.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm doing a good job at that. I'm saying I think people will come to me in business about those things because I'm a woman and they would never if I were a man.
Yeah.
You know. Well, let's talk about the city a little bit more. Are you excited about charter change, like the new city structure next year?
I'm cautiously optimistic.
I didn't say that. Yeah.
What really excites me is the city manager. I mean, we have needed that for so long, and I don't know why we thought we had to wait to change a charter to do that. We could have done some of this, you know, a little bit more creatively in the run-up to this to just get more of these bureaus coordinated. That was one of the things why I ran for mayor, was getting those bureaus and the budget aligned, which the mayor's office always had that power to do that and get that work done. So it will be nice to see that happening, and hopefully we can get a really skillful manager in that position who can get our systems righted. I'm looking forward to the increased representation. It'll be nice to have voices
with districts
from across the city. So we'll see how that goes. I am still a little worried about disparities from, like, say, the more affluent West Side and East Portland in particular. You know, But it will just be interesting to see how it plays out. And the conversation will be good because they'll be lawmakers then, and they won't have to be administering the bureaus like the current council does. So it will be nice to see that happening. But yeah, excited for the
And it won't be perfect overnight.
No.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. City manager, city administrative officer is the pivotal position, and I will probably vote for mayor based on who I think they will appoint.
That's interesting.
I think council can oust whoever. I think council can reverse the mayor's decision. I don't see that happening realistically in their first few months, when everyone's going to be onboarding to a totally new council. But yeah, I'm definitely looking at, are they going to pick somebody like who has CEO, COO vibes, and tons of experience?
Yeah.
Or are they going to just appoint their current chief of staff or their campaign manager? That's not okay in this situation. It's too big of a job.
No, it's probably the most important job coming up. And I would say the next most important thing is for the folks running for mayor is they're going to have to get a reframe too. And I think it could be phenomenal for Portland to actually have a figurehead mayor again who can speak on vision and values and get out of the weeds, because we are absent on the global stage. We haven't been there for a very long time. You referenced Portlandia. If that was the last time we were popular globally, God help us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does it mean to have a mayor who's not bogged down in this daily sausage making, can really go out and be an ambassador for our rebuild, right? Really champion the things that have, I feel that the world is losing out when Portland is not its best progressive self. This dragging us back to the center, it's not just bad for Portland, it's bad for the whole world.
Yeah.
Because who's going to be that left end of the bell curve? Who are the places that supported gay marriage early on? Well, without those, we don't get that Overton window moved, right?
Okay.
First climate action plan. We have dropped the ball on so many of our aspirations. Having that mayor be someone who can really set the vision and say, come on, team. Let's all face in the same direction, get over our petty differences and talk about what does public safety really look like here? What does climate mitigation and adaptation really look like here? What does a city that's truly working look like here and get us back on track?
And
hugely important.
Right. How do we get out of the bubble? How do we beef up our communications apparatus, which is my big thing lately, so that we can go be ambassadors? When it comes to our climate work, if we're doing something really cool and innovative, let's send people out to educate other cities on how to do this. Because if we have climate perfection in Portland, it doesn't really matter because the rest of the world's burning and it's all going to encroach. So I think when it comes to really cool and innovative stuff that we're doing, and we need to innovate more again, we're coasting in some places. And so having an ambassador or set of ambassadors, because there's also government relations and other people, but getting them out of the weeds so that they can get out of our bubble and also see what other places are doing and adopt those, I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's just, we need it. And the other thing, when you think about it, we have to make good on the promises that we committed to, too.
Yeah. Like what?
Equity for real, right? What does it truly mean to have a city that's accessible and affordable for everyone, and getting everyone on board with that? Because what we're seeing is a thin slice of the population kind of hijacking that discourse. And I talk with folks like my canner, Michael, who supports himself and his mother by, picking up bottles and cans in the neighborhood. And then you hear that bottle drop is bad or bottle. Let's really start to be careful about how we talk about some of our vulnerable folks. Same with the Measure 110 conversation. Even in Oregon, I don't want people calling us names just because we're trying to do progressive, pro-social things in Portland. And you really need someone who can speak with that language, because when it comes to things like police accountability, look at how many people voted for that. It was over 80% of Portlanders voted to have a more accountable processes for the Portland police. So it's not like these things are unpopular, but we have to see them through. It's not enough to just set the goal. Let's see them through and really start to have the proof of how we're going to do this.
And iterate. I mean, I'm of two minds on this, because I think sometimes the voters already spoke, let's stick with it. It's 90-95% working well. Why do you want to put it back on the ballot? I'm talking about something specific that I won't say. And then in other things, it's maybe Measure 110. Okay, we tried something. Oh, we didn't have the infrastructure in place. maybe it's appropriate to back up and then go forward. Maybe it wasn't, but like we're trying, we're doing something, which I appreciate, versus saying we have certain values and not doing really anything, or making it like a figure, or what would it be? Not a figurehead, but like, for example, the new city org chart has a chief equity officer, I think, and like, will that person actually be influential, or will it just be like a title and it's cordoned off over here and every bureau has their own equity person? Like, that's true of a lot of things in the bureaus. Like, everyone has their own community engagement. Yeah, and there's not like enough unity on all of that. And I think it frustrates the people who are the central, you know, the equity office, or the, you know, whoever's more in like management and finance or something, that they cannot establish and codify those best practices across the whole city. So I'm hoping the new structure helps with that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, how that org chart shapes out will, along with the budget, right, really reflect what our true priorities are. And even Measure 110, look at that. You said the lack of infrastructure. Like, it's not enough to just have a good idea. You have to think that through and build that infrastructure and invest there. You can't just put up an aspiration, because if you do that and it's unsupported, then you're building it to fail.
Yeah.
And so, you know, climate, equity, prosperity, those things really do need to be overarching, and we need to make sure that they filter down through. So hopefully the next mayor and next city manager can pull that off. God bless them, whoever they are. It's not going to be me.
All right, flash round to wrap up. Are you
Okay.
running for mayor?
No.
Are you running for city council?
No.
Are you running for any office this year?
No.
All right. What is your one piece of advice for people who are running for mayor right now?
Running for mayor? Sell me on the vision.
All right.
Yeah.
And what is your one piece of advice for the person who actually gets mayor?
Call me.
I'll tell you. And what's the next hip hop show we're going to?
I missed Bad Bunny last night.
I know, I was so mad. I was driving
that
by Motor
reggaeton.
Center and I was like, what?
I had to take my daughter to the airport at like 3:30 this morning, so I couldn't make it. So
Oh
I don't
my
know
gosh.
who's coming. I saw
We need to look it up.
21 Savage maybe is coming.
Yeah. I mean, Sarah seems like super professional and academic in this moment, but she's my go-to hip-hop concert buddy, and I've seen her get down, so you need to, yeah.
I mean, we go
We're
to the
figuring it
deep cuts. You and
Yeah.
I go to like the, what was the last one we went to? Did we go to see Wu-Tang?
Yeah, it was RZA.
Yeah, it was RZA.
But that was like the first one we went to. But we did go to Boo Bomb also.
Oh,
like,
yeah, we did. do
Yeah,
that.
it's all good. Oh, and then we went to Nas.
Oh, yeah, no.
That was amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for the tea. I know there's a lot more, and we'll be both watching with popcorn as this whole city transition unfolds. But thank you for all you're doing in transportation. I think you've really hit your groove, and Portland's lucky to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show, and good luck with it.
Yeah. When we're back, where the party's at. All right, it's party time. Here are some events that I think you should check out in the next week here in Portland. First of all, Alberta Street Pub is doing an event called Sneaks and Drinks on Sunday afternoon. I can only assume it's an event that's going to have sneaks, i.e. sneakers, and drinks. So if you're a sneakerhead, that's a place to be. Maybe you'll meet your new best friend, or maybe do a little trade, find out about some awesome stores you didn't know about. Another event, I had tickets and now I can't use them. Alvin Ailey Dance Theater, probably my favorite dance company in the whole world, is going to be at the Schnitz on the 12th and 13th. You can still get tickets at whitebird.org. I have season tickets to Whitebird. Every show they bring into Portland is fabulous, and they're an absolute treasure. We're really lucky to have Whitebird bringing us dance companies from all over the world. We got to get them on the show and hear how they do it. But definitely check out Alvin Ailey. It's just, even if you don't usually go to dance shows, absolutely believe in that. If you'd like a very different type of dance show, you can go see the company with the largest marketing budget in all of the arts, and that is Shen Yun. They are at the Keller Auditorium I've never seen them before, but I sure know when they're coming because, again, unlimited marketing budget. How do they do that? All right, if you want to chill on your couch, the Oscars are Sunday night, Academy Awards, live streaming across a bunch of different platforms. And if you just want to chill out and about and go highbrow, Black Artists of Oregon is only one more week at the Portland Art Museum. And you know, it's amazing. I've been like 3 times already. It's so wonderful to see how much talent there is right here in our state. All right, that's it. If you have an idea for a guest or a venue, please hit us up at Portland Tea Party or portlandteaparty.com. And remember, you can't complain unless you're going to do something. So get involved. We had all new ways to do that here today. And next week, we're going to be coming to you from abroad talking about leaving Portland.